The Ford Focus is one of the best-selling new and used cars in the UK, which means this latest model has got a big job to do. No surprises then that Ford hasn't left anything to chance. The Focus has always been a standout performer in its class, right from when the first one was launched in 1998. But this, I think, represents the biggest evolutionary step yet, because not only does it look completely different, but it's taken big strides in every important area. For a start, it has addressed one of the biggest shortcomings of the old Focus by expanding the boot space, which is exciting. It's not just boot space that's increased either, because here in the back, this Focus is so much bigger than its predecessor. Ford has increased the wheelbase, which it says has allowed it to add 5 centimetres more knee room. And sitting here, I can believe it. This is a really roomy car. There's also an almost flat floor across the back, and headroom is good, even with this full-length sunroof in place. Let's just talk about trim lines quickly here as well, because in addition to the basic Focus, which is called the Style, there's also a Z-Tech, there's an ST line and an ST line X with sportier styling like this car. Then there's an Active and an Active X with a raised ride height and plastic body cladding. Then there's a Titanium and a Titanium X with more equipment. And then there's a Vignale, which is all posh and luxurious. Oh, and most of those are available as a hatchback or as an estate. So it's fair to say there's quite a lot of choice. On the engine front, Ford is currently offering 1 litre and 1.5 litre turbocharged petrols and 1.5 or 2 litre turbo diesels. And alongside the standard manual gearbox, there's also a brand new 8-speed automatic complete with this Jaguar style rotary controller. It's one of several nods to the Focus moving up market when it comes to design, quality and features. Certainly this Focus ST Line X feels pretty good inside. It includes these part leather seats with red stitching and, more questionably, this carbon fibre effect trim on the dash. The infotainment is Ford's Sync 3 system, which is generally quite user-friendly, although some of the buttons are a bit too small to find easily on the move. As for quality, we're not quite talking Audi levels in here, but compared with the previous Focus, it is certainly a big step up. Today we're driving the 1.5 litre diesel, although you'd barely know it because it's so quiet and so refined, with hardly any of the rattle you would usually associate with a 4-cylinder diesel. As is Ford's way with these things, there's a couple of power outputs available for this engine. Today we've got the higher output with 120 horsepower, which feels absolutely ideal for a car of this size. Having 8 gears also means there's always power on tap when you need it. The Focus has always been a very good car to drive, and this latest model is no exception. In fact, in many ways it's better than ever because Ford has really ramped up comfort and refinement. Even on lowered sport suspension and 18-inch alloy wheels like this ST Line X, it still feels supple enough to be comfortable. And so while Ford does offer adaptive dampers, I'm not really sure that you'd need them. As for the handling, there's no point pretending it's quite as entertaining as the Mark I Focus of 20 years ago, if for no other reason than it doesn't offer the same levels of feedback. That said, by modern standards, this is still a really nice car to drive. It steers brilliantly, it's nicely weighted and responsive, and the body stays nice and flat when you corner. In addition to being great to drive, Ford is also making a big play on this being the most technologically advanced car in its class. It therefore goes without saying that you get things like autonomous emergency braking and lane departure warning. Where things get clever is in the way that Ford is now offering the kind of technology you'd usually expect to see on a high-spec Audi or Mercedes, such as adaptive cruise control that will take the car right down to a stop and then accelerate away again, and that it can combine this with lane centering technology to stop you from wandering off course. There's also optional adaptive headlights that can change the direction and pattern of their beam depending on road conditions and other traffic, plus an optional fully automatic parking function. Let's face it, Ford was never going to drop the ball when it came to this new Focus. It's just too important a car for there to be any margin for error. What is good to note though is that Ford has managed to improve the Focus in every important area compared with its predecessor without compromising on the dynamic ability that's always been at the core of its appeal. And so whether you have £100, £1,000, £10,000 or £20,000 to spend, the Focus continues to be impossible to ignore. much like the CarGurus UK YouTube channel, which we would heartily encourage you to subscribe to as well.